to cut through all of the noise of all of the disinformation that's there. So like, you know, you remember Out on the Edges, there was this story about when they would take a house by force, they would take any infants and they would crucify them. And that's a great, fantastic, viral story. And how do you counter that story? With the truth. The only way you can counter it is by saying, no, they didn't. And of course, no one wants to spread that story. No one wants to hear that story. They want to hear the sensationalism. They want to hear how people were victims of violence when in fact they weren't. Or they were victims of insurgent forces when in fact they weren't.
The news isn't neutral, it's a battleground. Here's media researcher and academic Alfie.
The media has, of course, been perhaps the key way in which governments have controlled and influenced their populations. So, totalitarian countries have typically used huge mainstream media outlets to sell one kind of news, one kind of biased news to its population. Of course, the media has always played this kind of key role in methods of state control. I think what's happening now is perhaps even more concerning, where you previously, in pre-crisis Britain, we had perhaps more diverse voices in the media, but now with the GBB, you're really only seeing one brand of news and therefore only getting one truth. So people end up with a very biased and controlled idea of the reality and the world that we're actually living in. There was, of course, many concerns and many problems, but in a way there were some positive things that, like, not all information was coming from one place, and so you'd have kind of far-right media outlets developing and then left-wing media outlets developing to combat those and kind of challenge the mainstream newspapers, TV stations, radios, and make sure people were questioning the validity and truth of the information they were receiving. So whilst there was the digital afforded more fake information, it also makes us suspicious and sceptical of information and makes us question the information we're getting. And I think in pre-crisis Britain, it might not have seemed great at the time, but there was something positive about that there was a lot of distrust in the media and different kinds of truths that were being told, whereas now I think you're seeing a return to a more traditional and older pre-digital sense, actually, of people just trusting what they're told, and that's why we have to be here with radio stations like this to challenge those conceptions. Most citizens feel pretty hopeless, I think, and unable to fight back against these kind of huge mainstream corporations that simply entrench and support the ideals and ideologies of the state. It can seem very hopeless indeed, but I think, the fact that you're out there listening, we're in here talking, shows that there is still a space to combat these false truths and disinformation that's being sold to us, and that it's never possible really to completely shut down, despite all the technologies that they have at their disposal and all the financial corporate power and all
Auto drive
the
now
physical
disabled.
power, it's never quite possible to shut down people's desire to get to the truth and fight for their own ideologies and values. And you know, we're out here starting that task, so don't give up hope.
You've been listening to Buccaneer with me, Tash. We'll be back soon with more of what you'll never hear from the GBP. Keep listening, keep sharing, and keep resisting. Vital medical supplies. This is London Calling. You're listening to Buccaneer, your source for what they don't want you to know. With me, it's hard to believe that there could be shortages of food and medicine in an advanced country. And yet, here we are. Those old government promises of adequate food turn out to be just another lie. Today we're short of basic foodstuffs and vital medical supplies. Hundreds have already died of conditions that can be easily cured. The black market means that criminal gangs like Clan Kelly run our cities. And Prime Minister Dev Hassani isn't even around to tell you to fair.
During the scan.
Oh, just get on with it.
Everyone's quality of life got instantly worse
fuck off, you prick.
The most damaging part was when the radioactive isolation. Now, radioactive isolation is cancer-free and cancer-free. Now, that stuff, it has a
I've got no fucking patience for this.
Used to save hundreds of thousands of lives just by screening.
Shit for brains. Lousy maggots.
Hold on.
You can always surrender.
Fuck you.
Fucking twat.
I've had it.
All units. Possible suspect or suspects reported near your location.
Got it. Watch for hostiles, people.
You don't see that every day.
All units, force this suspect to stop.
Control, I've lost the target.
We're being contacted by our potential... recruit. Patching them through now.
Thank you. I'm in your debt. If you want to pay us...
And then the medics. The thing is, there's loads of medics.
This is London Calling. You're listening to Buccaneer. Your call for what? Don't go with me. Oops, it's hard to believe it.
Welcome to Dead. Brilliant. Finally found one people. Very nice. Just as the bar for some modern art. That'll do just fine.
Auto drive now enabled.
This is London Calling. You're listening to Buckingham, your source for what they don't want you to know. With me, Tash. It's hard to believe that there could be shortages of food and medicine in an advanced country like ours. And yet, here we are. Those old government promises of adequate food turn out to be just another lie. Today we're short of basic foodstuffs and vital medical supplies. Hundreds have already died. Black market, criminal gangs, and Prime Minister Dev has asked. Can I help you?
It's going to get it. Every day.
This is London Calling. You're listening to Buckingham, your source for what they don't want you to know. With me, Tash. It's hard to believe that there could be shortages of food and medicine in an advanced country like ours. And yet, here we are. Those old government promises of adequate food turn out to be just another lie. Today we're short of basic foodstuffs and vital medical supplies. Hundreds have already died of conditions that could be easily cured. The black market
Auto
means
drive
that
now
criminal
enabled.
gangs like Clan Kelly run our cities. And Prime Minister Dev Hasani isn't even around to pretend to care. How do we go from a consumer paradise to a place of empty shelves and fighting for supplies? What turns a land of plenty into a wild west of hoarding, food battles and black market barons? We protect everyone who comes on the podcast by keeping their identities a secret. Here's veteran political reporter Ian on the power behind shortages.
Look, I mean, what was the first thing that happened when Britain sealed itself off? Like, the first stuff that got stopped from coming in was fresh food. I mean, we could live without the fresh food. I mean, everyone's quality of life got instantly worse, but we could live without it. The most damaging part was when the radioactive isotopes stopped coming in. Now, radioactive isotopes, that's what we use in cancer screening, cancer treatment. Now, that stuff, it has a short half-life. Technetium used to save hundreds of thousands of lives just by screening for cancer, let alone testing for cancer. But that stuff has a half-life of 66 hours. As soon as those walls went up, there was just
no time to bring it into the country, and that is when people study. And then the medicine.
Let's wait around and see if this... Our potential recruit is identified. A counterfeit farmer operation run by a nearby Clan Kelly dealer. You could download incriminating evidence off their optic.
I hate the doctor's offices sometimes. I understand they can't really get confidential information over the phone, and that receptionists aren't allowed to. Do they know how stressful it is to get blood call at 8 in the goddamn morning that just says available? We got test results and need you to come in for treatment. Sure, I know it's probably benign, but still.
I found some highly incriminating evidence on the counterfeit farmer dealer's optic. I'll send it on to our prospect and let them decide how to handle it. Speaking of which, I have some exciting news about the man you just helped.
From there, you've got the situation we have now of this big war between criminals and security that seems to dominate what's going on out there.
Nothing to keep you...
Tell me about him, Bagley.
Actually, the strangest thing about him is he's not weighed down by old soup cans at the bottom of the Thames. He has a load of dodgy gambling debts and he's refusing financial help from a rich friend.
I've never known a degenerate like that to turn down free money.
Auto drive now enabled.
You're right. A gambling addict making a bad life choice. Oh, the mystery. You'd better talk to the friend if you want to crack this one.
Good idea. Bagley, get me a face-to-face.
Those old government promises of adequate food...
Auto drive
turned
now
out to be
disabled.
Just another lie. Today we're short of basic foodstuffs and vital medical supplies. Hundreds have already died of conditions that can be easily cured. The black market means that criminal gangs like Clan Kelly run our cities. And Prime Minister Dev Hassani isn't even around to pretend to care. How do we go from a consumer paradise to a place of empty shelves and fighting for supplies? What turns a land of plenty into a wild west of hoarding, food battles and black market barons? We protect everyone who comes on the podcast by keeping their identities a secret. Here's veteran political reporter Ian on the power behind shortages.
Look, I mean, what was the first thing that happened when Britain sealed itself off? Like, the first stuff that got stopped from coming in was fresh food. I mean, we could live without the fresh food. I mean, everyone's quality of life got instantly worse, but we could live without it. The most damaging part was when the radioactive isotopes stopped coming in. Now, radioactive isotopes, that's what we use in cancer screening, cancer treatment. Now, that stuff, it has a short half-life. Technetium used to save hundreds of thousands of lives just by screening for cancer, let alone testing for cancer. But that stuff has a half-life of 66 hours. As soon as those walls went up, there was just no time to bring it into the country, and that is when people started dying. And then the medicine. The thing is, there were loads of medicines that you just can't stockpile. There was a moment when actually...
Please, stop! I get it.
Under half of our own food. As soon as they changed them up, we started having...
What's next?
Hey, somebody stop them!
Urgent call. Possible hostile at your location. Received. We'll engage if necessary.
Sorry to inconvenience you.